I have the best project idea, but I don't have the right stamp. What I want is an image of a bird soaring in the sky. You'd think I would have one as I own so many stamps, but nope, I don't. So instead of searching to buy just the right one, I decide to cut my own from scratch. But before I cut the bird, I need to test some materials, starting with craft foam, as it's very spongy. I draw a leaf design on my foam. I'm doing it freehand, but you can also trace an image instead. Then I cut around it with my scissors and even use an X-Acto knife if needed, especially in the smaller areas. I also make my own gear stamp, but I don't end up using it later on as it doesn't fit my theme. I want to cut more intricate designs. So I start designing a more intricate pattern and using my X-Acto knife start cutting through the small spaces. This is where I encounter my first problem. This is taking way too long to cut by hand, and not only do I not have the patience, but it's hard to cut in the small little areas. That's when it occurs to me that I have a Cricut machine. And Cricut is a smart cutting machine that allows you to create personalized projects with hundreds of materials and designs. It works with a software called Design Space that comes free with your machine. This is where you can create your project and browse from hundreds of images and fonts. So I begin with a simple design and pick a whimsical heart shape. Choose craft foam from the set materials. Design Space will send it to your machine to cut. I will explain soon why I cut 4 of them at a time. Then I choose a more intricate heart pattern and cut 4 of those as well. So far I'm on a roll, and I will soon show you different ways to mount these stamps. But I need to try an even more intricate pattern to see if it will cut. And that's when I encounter my second problem. The pattern is too intricate and the foam is not cutting properly. I attempted by adding more blade pressure and the pieces start moving, preventing the cut. I stop the cut, take another foam and cut with less pressure, but this time it doesn't cut through. And I even try cutting through the designs with an X-Acto knife, but it defeats the purpose of having the machine. Still, I want that intricate wavy design. So I search for another solution and find a product that I think could work. But in the meantime, I take this time to test the foam stamps I made. There are several ways to mount them. You can glue a few of the same designs together, like the heart ones where I stack them up so the stamp has more height and sponginess. Obviously, I couldn't do that with the ones I drew. It would take too long to cut 4 of them. But I think the stamp will work with just one layer as well. There are a few ways to mount them. One way is to glue it on wood, but only if you have access to wood. Don't stress yourself otherwise. My husband cut these pieces for me, but there is other ways to do it, like gluing them on a piece of chipboard or cardboard. I do that for the green leaf and the gear. However, my favorite way is to use Aleene's Tack-It over and over glue, which lets you add a thin layer of glue over your stamp. And once it dries, it remains tacky, which helps it stick to any surface, including an acrylic block. And you know those little hearts I popped from the inside of the large pattern? I glue them randomly on a piece of cardboard as well, as it makes a great texture stamp. The next day, I get the product I order. It's an 1/8 of an inch thick rubber sheet, which is usually used to make rubber stamps through a laser cutting machine. But will it work on my Cricut? Rubber sheets are not part of the set materials in the Cricut Design Space, and so I need to create a rubber sheet category, which I test by cutting the soaring bird I wanted for my project. And I'm so happy it cut beautifully. But the intricate design is next, and I'm not sure it will work. And while it does, I start preparing my art journal. I take a double page from my 8x10 Joggles disc-bound journal and roll some yellow paint across the pages. Then I start stamping my page, first with the leaf using some blue. I add a few random impressions across the page and then use green to stamp with the heart across both pages as well. You will soon see why I chose to stamp in this way. But in the meantime, my intricate stamp is done cutting, and I take it out of the rubber sheet. The pattern is amazing. I could add glue on the back and put it on an acrylic block, but instead, I use it as is with dark green paint to add some wavy patterns in my art journal spread. I like this method because it creates very grungy lines. But if you're using it for a card, then you could definitely put it on an acrylic block and it will create a better impression. I then continue stamping with both heart patterns, using some magenta as the color really looks vibrant. The next part is my favorite. I use the Cricut machine to cut some leaf fronds out of vinyl and then remove them from the backing and place them on my art journal to act as a mask. That way I'm able to add acrylic paint across the whole page without worrying about it getting underneath the design. Then I heat dry the paint and start removing the vinyl, which comes off easily to reveal the masked areas with all the beautiful stamped patterns. And remember the bird stamp? After adding white splatters and outlining the leaves, I use white heavy body acrylic paint to stamp the bird. Then I flip the stamp and add tacky glue on the other side of the bird so I can stamp the mirror image. In fact, I could have cut a second bird instead, as I can create any stamp I want at any time. And if you think being able to cut any stamp is cool, imagine being able to carve your own stamp designs like I'm doing in this video right here.